The creaking of the floorboards echoed in the dimly lit room as Evelyn gently placed the antique marionette on her work table. It was an exquisite piece, intricately carved from dark wood, its face painted with a haunting expression that danced between joy and sorrow. She had discovered it at an old curiosity shop tucked away in a narrow alley. The shopkeeper had spoken of its history, warning her in a gravely voice that the marionette had been cursed, its last owner meeting a gruesome fate. But Evelyn, a lover of the macabre, had dismissed the tale as mere superstition. That night, as the clock struck midnight, an unsettling chill crept through her apartment. She awoke with a start, feeling an inexplicable pull towards the work table. There, under the pale glow of the moonlight, the marionette stood, eerily upright. Its strings, once slack, now taut, seemed to tremble as if an unseen force guided its movements. Evelyn's heart raced, half in fear and half in fascination. She blinked, convinced she was dreaming, but the marionette remained, its eyes glinting with a life of their own. The following night, the marionette danced again, this time performing a macabre ballet. Its wooden limbs moved with a fluidity that was both beautiful and horrifying, twisting and contorting as it swayed to a silent tune. As the moonlight spilled through her window, Evelyn felt a compulsion to join in, her body responding to an unspoken rhythm. Just as she reached for it, the marionette fell still, its gaze fixed on her as if waiting for her next move. The unease settled in her stomach like a stone. She knew she had to learn more about the marionette's past. The next day, Evelyn visited the curiosity shop again, hoping to uncover the truth behind the dark whispers surrounding her new possession. The shopkeeper was busy dusting off trinkets when she approached him, her heart pounding. "I need to know about the marionette," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper. "The one I bought yesterday." The old man's expression darkened, shadows flickering across his face. "That one has a dark history, lass. It once belonged to a puppeteer named Alaric, who was accused of a string of murders many years ago. They say he infused his creations with dark magic, binding them to his will. After his execution, the marionette vanished, only to resurface decades later, always linked to misfortune." Evelyn shivered, but her curiosity outweighed her fear. What happened to the people who owned it? Those who possessed it were found dead in gruesome ways, strangled by the very strings that once gave it life. It's said that the marionette carries the souls of those who died by its hand, and it seeks a new master. Once it finds one, the cycle begins anew. Despite the shopkeeper's warnings, Evelyn couldn't resist. She felt a connection to the marionette, a bond that was as thrilling as it was terrifying. That night, as she lay in bed, she dreamt of the marionette. It whispered secrets to her, revealing glimpses of Alaric's dark past, the passion that had driven him to madness, and the sinister puppetry that had entangled the lives of so many. Days turned into weeks, and each night the marionette performed, drawing Evelyn deeper into its dark world. She found herself compelled to research the unsolved murders tied to Alaric. One by one, she uncovered their stories, each victim claiming to have witnessed the marionette come to life before their deaths. Their chilling accounts painted a picture of horror that threatened to engulf her sanity. One evening, while rifling through dusty old newspapers in the library, she stumbled upon a particularly chilling article. The headline read, "Puppeteer Found Guilty of Witchcraft and Murder." Beneath it was a photograph of Alaric, his eyes filled with an unhinged madness. She gasped as she recognized the marionette in his hands, its painted face almost identical to the one in her apartment. As she delved deeper into the fake research, Evelyn's nights grew more restless. The marionette's movements became increasingly erratic, as if it sensed her growing fear. One night, she awoke to find it standing at the foot of her bed, its strings taut and glistening in the darkness. She could feel its eyes boring into her soul, the weight of its curse heavy upon her. Panic clawed at her as she realized she had unwittingly become part of the puppet's tragic tale. The realization hit her like a bolt of lightning. She was the next in line. The connection was undeniable. The marionette had chosen her, and she had been ensnared in its malevolent web. Desperate to break free from the curse, Evelyn sought out the shopkeeper again, hoping for a way to rid herself of the cursed object. "You must burn it," he warned, his voice trembling. "Only then can you escape its grasp. But beware, once you sever the strings, the marionette will fight back." That night, trembling with fear, she gathered her courage. She could feel the marionette watching her, its presence looming like a specter in the dark. She took it outside to her backyard, where a small fire pit awaited. With trembling hands, she lit a match, the flame flickering as it caught the dry wood of the marionette's body. The moment the fire touched the marionette, a deafening wail filled the air, a sound that resonated deep within her bones. The marionette convulsed, its limbs jerking violently as if trying to break free from the flames. Evelyn stepped back, her heart racing as she watched the fire dance, illuminating the darkened night. The smell of burning wood mixed with something more sinister, an acrid scent that hinted at the souls trapped within. Just as the flames began to consume the marionette, the fire flickered, and in that moment, the air thickened with a palpable darkness. Shadows coalesced around her, swirling like a tempest. The marionette's face twisted in agony, its eyes pleading as if trying to convey a final message. In a desperate bid to escape, Evelyn turned to run, but the shadows reached for her, wrapping around her like a shroud. Panic surged within her as she felt the weight of the curse pulling her down, dragging her back towards the fire. "No," she screamed, her voice swallowed by the encroaching darkness. But in the last moments, she gathered her strength and fought back against the suffocating grip. She focused on the light of the flames, envisioning the Marionette's curse dissolving in the heat. With a final burst of willpower, she broke free from the shadows and lunged towards the fire, thrusting the marionette into the blaze. The flames roared, and the shadows dissipated with a screech, a cacophony of despair that echoed into the night. Evelyn watched as the marionette was engulfed, the fire consuming its malevolent spirit, the strings snapping one by one like the fragile threads of fate. As dawn broke, she collapsed onto the ground, exhausted but free. The weight of the curse lifted, and the chilling whispers faded into silence. She could feel the sun warming her skin, a sign that the darkness had been vanquished, if only for now. But as she stood up, brushing ash from her hands, a cold breeze whispered through the trees, carrying with it a reminder. Curses may fade, but the echoes of the past linger, waiting for a new soul to entwine in their dark dance.